Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a sit-down chat with Matthew Pullan, also known as Running Through Cancer. Today in Series 2, we're joined by a guest called Janet, who I am lucky enough to know from when I went on her podcast, Resilient People, and I'd like to say we're friends now.
Sure are.
So today we're going to be discussing some difficult topics because we all know we love joyous topics on this podcast. And we're going to be handling cancer and bereavement and how it feels. So welcome, Janet.
Hi, Matthew. Nice to see you again. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me on. It's
You're
exciting.
welcome. You're welcome. For anybody that doesn't know Janet, I'll put the podcast down below. For when I was on to Janet, we had a good chat then as well, so hopefully we get a good chat now.
Oh, for sure.
We are from different countries. Like we're from across the lake. Did I say lake or something?
Ocean.
Ocean, because you're Canada, right?
Yeah, Toronto.
Yeah, so you're filming in the morning, I'm filming in the evening. So the only time we can do this. So
we make it work.
People need to like and comment on this video for the dedication of people like us. So I'm just gonna get straight into it. So do you want to explain your story?
Sure. So back in 2016, my husband and I were looking forward to having a weekend away down in New York to see the US Open. And we had the weekend planned out, lots of fun in store, new outfits. It was exciting. And, but previous to that, that was at the end of the summer, he, for a couple of months, had been showing some strange, uncharacteristic kind of behaviors. He was having a hard time hearing. He was having a hard time remembering things, retaining information. And, we just kind of chalked it up to him being overly exhausted.
Yeah.
He worked a lot. And but he went to get himself checked out, and his doctor had prescribed him some baby aspirin, thinking that he may have had a minor stroke.
Oh, yeah.
And Adam knew deep down that that wasn't the case. So a couple of days had gone by, and he persevered to get some scans done. And a CT scan followed by an MRI confirmed that he had brain cancer, and that it was glioblastoma, which is the most aggressive form of brain cancer. And it was heart-wrenching. It was a shock to everyone in our family. Within 2 weeks, he was on the surgery table to have the tumor removed, as much of it as could have been removed.
Yeah, because they can only remove like a certain amount with GBM, can't they? Like, I've spoken to someone who was lucky enough to get 95% out, but if you compare it with the usual ratings, it's like 60 to 80%.
Yeah, well, Adam was lucky. Our surgeon had right after the surgery came out to see me in the waiting area, and he had said, "We got it out. I mean, of course, there are always some cells that we can't see, but we got it out." So that to me felt like a victory. But when he was diagnosed, we were told that this is something that is not going to be cured. It is not going to go away. It's going to basically be moved from the front burner of the stovetop to the back burner.
Yeah.
And so, we learned to kind of celebrate the moments of when things were good, because, we went from having a great summer to having something really terrible happen to us. And then, knowing that the tumor was removed, we kind of felt like, okay, we can kind of move forward with something else now, even with the treatments and whatever. He had months of radiation and chemotherapy, which were really difficult. So, but, it was always in the back of our minds, even though there were a lot of people around us who would say, "Oh, he's good, he's great," things are, and, you always know when you're the person who is told the news You know
remember it.
what's gonna happen.
I
It
do. I do sometimes go to bed and just think of when I was told that it's red and I couldn't get rid of it. It's like you'll
it's,
always remember it and you'll always be living with it, with that thought in your head, no matter what you're doing at the time.
yep.
It's in the head.
Yeah. And Matthew, it's so interesting when I talk to you about this because, when I would, like you're saying, you're lying in bed thinking these thoughts, the times that Adam and I would both be in bed and he was the patient, I
Yeah,
was the caregiver, me with my thoughts, I would always be wondering, what is he thinking?
yeah,
What is going on in his mind? He's the one who's living with this. Yes, I'm living with it as well. And so are the kids, everybody under our roof. But he, at the end of the day, is the one who has this.
yeah,
So it was always, how are we going to help him with his
yeah,
quality of life? And, Adam did, several things that he credited to, having a longer life with this.
yeah,
He changed his diet, he amped up his exercise routine. He did all these sorts of things in the hopes that it would give him 1% chance of getting better.
yeah, like,
And
yeah.
right.
I mean,
At the
I
end of the
do that. Yeah,
Yeah, and you know what? It's all good, right? I mean,
exactly.
at
Yeah,
the you've got your running. He had his things. He went back to work within a year, and that for him was so satisfying and
an
so
achievement.
gratifying.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, just to
I
be with his
always say,
workmates.
I always say during like cancer, there's always so many different achievements, and it's although it's a horrible disease, it's so fulfilling once you've managed to do something again.
Mhm. 100%. So having
Mm.
him get back to work, it was emotional. It was really, it was a bit of a worry, but at the same time, it was more of a, man, look at you and look at what you've done. Look at what you've
Yeah,
gone through and look at where you've gotten yourself to. So I still remember that moment seeing him in his suit just about to leave the house. And it was just so amazing.
I mean, I bet
Um,
you were a bit worried being the caregiver and seeing him getting his independence back. I mean, it's a sense of pride for you, and then you're like, oh, what happens if something happens? And you're like, I bet you feel like it's out of your control then.
yeah, to a certain degree. I mean, after time goes by, it was more on the back burner, as I mentioned
Yeah,
earlier. But then there was a day that was in 2019 where he had a seizure when he was at work. And that completely blindsided me.
yeah.
Because you just think, what's happened? He was okay leaving the
He was,
house today.
yeah, it's like he was fit and healthy and
Yeah, so
he's
that
just got in
kind
the
of
way again.
yeah, and then you get the call from somebody at work and he's in the hospital. It just like, oh my God.
Yeah,
It just sends you right back again. But it teaches you to just live in the moment and
yeah,
just forget about worrying about what you don't need to worry about.
yeah,
And whatever might be happening tomorrow or whatever happened last week, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't
yeah,
matter. And it sounds like a cliche to people who haven't had to experience something like this, but truly it doesn't matter.
yeah. I totally agree because I was actually having a conversation with someone today about it. It's like I'm like it doesn't feel like reality, so, but you need to treat it and embrace it to the best of your ability because otherwise you're just gonna let it overpower your life, and you should be enjoying life.
Yes, 100%. I mean, I think, from the course of talking to so many people who've gone through so many horrible things, the one thing you walk away with is, people go through things, or a lot of people go through things. Maybe it's not what you're going through, but they've gone through a big challenge. But
Yeah,
most of them will say, well, I really had no other choice but to keep going forward.
yeah,
And boy, it feels so much better to just go forward and see what's in store for you versus just being stuck in your bad
exactly.
place.
Yeah, like you know that I run and do stuff like campaign for brain tumors and
Yep.
young adults. You just it's an achievement. You don't stop. You have to keep going, otherwise you're stopping for the world instead of the world stopping for you, which is how
Yeah.
it should be. So
Yeah.
you just need to get. It's like, as morbid as it is, it's like you walking out the door and just getting hit and dying, or
Yeah.
having a heart attack in the street. It's like life ends for everybody
Yeah.
at a specific point anyway. So why bother worrying about it?
Yeah. It's true. I used to say to Adam, I remember many times when he would kind of be, a little down, I
Yeah,
would say to him, hey, something could happen to me leaving the house. I mean, who's to say that you're going to go before me? I mean, God, things happen to people all the time. And then he would just
exactly.
look at me, kind of laugh. And he's like, what are you talking about? Do you know what I'm living with? Like, yeah, I know, but listen, like something can still happen to
Yeah,
me.
like
So like that's
you look
life.
at in the football, a really fit football having a cardiac arrest on the football pitch, and no one knows why. It just happened. Anything like that can happen.
Yep.
You've got these super fit athletes just dropping down. Uh, I mean, I remember a player called Cheick Tiote who went to train in China, play football, as fit as a fiddle. One day just uh, collapsed, had a heart attack, and died. It's
Oh,
like,
wow.
yeah,
Yeah, things happen all the time. I mean, and some people, they could be living a great life and things are going their way and they're still stuck in what might happen,
yeah.
you know?
I,
And
that's
yeah,
one of the
again,
hard things. Having a cancer diagnosis, it's like people can't see past what is going to happen. It's like, for me, death's inevitable anyway. So you
but
always,
look at everything that you're doing.
yeah,
I mean, Matthew, gosh, since I've met you and even before that when I was just following your blog,
yeah.
you know, you are a testament to somebody
Thank
who
you.
has these odds against him, but it's like I'm still going. I'm still
Exactly.
doing stuff. I'm still out there. So,
Yeah,
and I marvel at that and I just think it's amazing and I'm so grateful to have
yeah.
people like you around as
Uh, yeah.
inspiration.
Thank you. People are thinking I'm doing this blog just to be picked up now, this podcast, but no, no. Thank you. And talking about the blog, I'll link the blog to your blog post, which you wrote on my blog. That's a lot of blogs in one sentence. But you can read Janet's and Adam's story down in the description. I'll tag it somewhere. Uh, because it is a really inspirational story, especially. We'll get on to why you started the podcast later, but it's like it's inspirational that you keep going and keep striving for it, and people should definitely give it a listen,
Thank
and
you.
especially mine.
It is
uh,
a really good
yeah,
episode.
yeah. So now we're gonna move on to the main attraction. We'll call it. It's not really joyous, but bereavement. I've lost a parent to cancer. You've lost your husband to cancer. Uh, you've seen someone that you've cared for die through cancer. I'm experiencing it. Well, I'm living with cancer, uh, but I can imagine those things are very different. As like, I know you were like a caregiver and a wife. So how do those feel? How are those feelings any different uh, for
Oh,
losing?
you know, okay, so already I had to wrap my head around the whole idea that at 47, I
Yeah,
had a husband who was given 15 months to live
yeah,
because he was going to have this cancer that was going to slowly wipe his memory, wipe his physical abilities, wipe
yeah,
his all kinds of things. And, you know, you hit 47, and you just think, wow, that's not how I picture
Yeah.
47 was going to be. And, maybe if, someone is going to be watching this or listening and they've experienced something kind of like that when you're in your hitting your midlife, that's the point where you start making different plans. You
Yeah.
start thinking about, hey, when we stop working, all the
Yeah.
places we're going to travel to. Hey, when the kids move out, maybe we'll
Yeah.
move to a smaller house together, all these sorts of things. Not, um, you know, I'm still in the prime of my life and
Yeah.
this is what I'm going to spend my time doing and what he's going to have to deal with. So, and being a mother as well, and both having families that love us each, it
Yeah.
was really hard to be the first person closest to him other than his brother. But I would say that because I lived with him, I saw much more of what Adam was going
Yeah.
through than what his brother would have been seeing. It was really, really hard. It was really hard. People will stop me regularly and say, "Oh, you did this with such grace." I mean,
Yeah.
that is just, oh God, it's irritating. It's just, what do you want me to do? I still have to walk the dog. I still have to get groceries. I still
Like,
need to,
yeah.
drop something off to someone.
But
And, I'm
that
not going to cry everywhere I go.
that's one of the reasons. One of the hard things I found. Life goes on and continues. It doesn't stop.
I couldn't delegate everything to somebody else. It
Yeah.
was
It
not a possibility.
feels wrong.
And I also wouldn't have wanted to do that even if I had the capacity to do it,
Yeah.
because it's good to have a purpose every day. It's
Yeah.
good every day to have a list of what you want to get done.
To
Or even if
achieve.
it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, one or two things that you want to get done. It's good to
Yeah.
have that, because I remember hearing Olivia Newton-John, who I think she's now dealing with her third bout of
Yeah.
cancer. And she was interviewed not long ago, and she was saying how helpful distractions can be.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, distractions. It's almost like another word for having a purpose. But people consider distractions to be more of a negative,
Yeah.
whereas I think distractions can be fantastic to have. Even when Adam would not be doing so well, I would still have 5 or 10 minutes out of the day where I would just sit on the couch and I would read a magazine, or I would just sit outside with the drink or coffee or whatever
Yeah.
and just have that time to myself.
Have a relax.
Yeah, people who say, I just can't carve out the time. Yes, you can. You
You
can find
can.
5 minutes and you can just say to whoever, I'm going to be outside and this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You're not skipping across the other side of town to go to a movie but yeah, in those moments that you can grab for yourself, like really just for yourself, it's imperative because
Yeah.
it's survival mode. Um, as the person who is the wife of the person who is the patient, he depended on me for a lot, especially at the beginning and at the end. Not when he
Yeah.
was at work so much and when he was really independent. But in those times that he was going through treatments again, because as you know, with radiation, it can really mess with your head.
Yeah.
You get
I've
that
uh, I've got pituitary gland problems from when I was younger and stuff. So yeah, and it makes you really tired and stuff.
tired brain fog,
Yeah.
and yeah, and when his memory started to go, I mean, there was a lot. And everybody wanted to know how things were going, so you're kind of being the conduit with all these
Yeah.
people that want to know. But then at the same time, even when Adam, he persevered, I mean, till the very end. He was typing out letters and notes to the physicians, wanting me to reread them and wanting me
Yeah.
to contact people. And it was a lot. But, I still really needed to have that time. every day to
Yeah.
just, have a little bit just carved out just for me.
Take some time for yourself
Yeah,
because
and even have people sit with him.
yeah,
He was adamant to not have anybody come to the house at a certain point, but I fought back against that, just saying it was more for me that he would be doing it,
yeah,
not for himself. Just for me to have reassurance that, if he was going to be on his own and he needed something to drink, he wasn't going to drop the glass.
yeah,
So, yeah. So, being the caregiver, it wasn't something that I pictured. I would say though that being raised to be a pretty independent person really
yeah,
helped. And I really try to, with my own kids, raise them to do stuff for themselves
yeah,
because it's important to be self-sufficient. And um yeah, I think that helped to keep me strong. There are other things that help to keep me, mentally in a good state of mind,
yeah,
just have a positive mindset, in spite of something being so horrible. But and I think also too, with brain cancer, and I can't comment on necessarily other cancers, but I would say that um Adam, okay, he was given 15 months to live and he lived for 3.5 years. But, from that time, it wasn't long. For us, it was like, "Whoa, look at you."
yeah,
It's great. Wow. But, you kind of start grieving at the very beginning. I think
yeah,
when you're diagnosed, and it gave us all that time to kind of have those talks with each other and
yeah,
for him to talk with the kids and have conversations with his brother. And so by the end, you kind of feel, I can only compare it to people who I know who have lost someone immediately, like
yeah,
tragically,
yeah.
where you have no time for goodbyes.
I know,
At
yeah,
Right? At
yeah,
least when you have a long runway for your, you know, when they're
yeah,
anticipating your, how long you're going to live,
yeah,
you should use that time, right? To
and yeah,
have the conversations that mean something. Like Matthew, you were telling me that you tell people that you love them, right? Like
yeah,
family, I
yeah.
mean, God, right? I mean, it's so simple, but
But people don't do it because uh, they forget. Well, it's
yeah,
not
they take,
forget. It's like you want. They take them for granted, kind of. It's like
yeah,
you need to realize who the true people are, and
yeah,
it's weird because you're talking about it from like a parent's perspective, and I lost my mum at a young age to cancer,
I do.
and I can still remember the conversation. I was 9 years old at the time. Can remember the conversation like it was yesterday that she was gonna die, and it's hard. Like, but if you can have those conversations, you need to do it and be honest. Like I myself with cancer, I've had some conversations already. It's not nice, but it kind of makes you feel more comfortable that things are gonna be sorted for uh, who you love. And I also want to ask, but I don't know this because I was a child. But how did it affect your parenting? Like lose it, having kids and losing the father. How did that contribute to your parenting?
Oh, well, I would say, there's so much guilt around,
Yeah,
and it's not that I feel like I've got, somebody had said it's like survivor guilt, but I think it's more just feeling terribly that my children have lost their dad.
yeah,
I mean, and there's nothing that I can do about that. I mean, I always say, well, he has brain cancer. There's nothing I can do about it. I can only, make whatever time he's here and whatever we're
yeah.
doing, the best day ever or whatever. But, when that person goes, there's nothing as the surviving
It
parent can
feels like
do.
a hole as such.
Yeah.
It feels
And
like
then you
someone's missing.
And you become, you know, I'm not going to even try to pretend to be, both parents because I'm not. I'm just a
Yeah,
mom, right? And I can only do so much. but at the same time, in some ways, we've always been close. I mean, I guess this would be a conversation that, my kids would probably be better equipped to answer, but yeah, it just being a single parent is not fun.
Yeah.
And, people would joke with me when I was first a mom back
Yeah.
21 years ago now. Oh, you're like a single parent, because the thing was is that Adam worked so much.
Yeah.
And I would never say that. I would never say I am like a single parent, because I would see single parents around who were really struggling. And I would
Yeah.
think that's not something to be mocked, you know? But now that I am a single parent, um, it's hard. There are just so many things about it, like when my son was looking for apartments to move into for university, like it's just moments like
Yeah.
your dad would have loved this, right? Or, and I guess there are those people who say, "Oh, he's with you. He's with you,"
Yeah.
and it's
But
like,
physically,
is
he's
he?
not. Yeah.
Like I
It
would
doesn't feel
often,
like.
no, I mean, it doesn't, I honestly, I don't subscribe to that whole, "Oh, their spirit is everywhere you
Yeah.
go." And he used to say that to me too. He said that, I remember one time we were in the kitchen together, and I said, "Oh, I'm really bummed about how this is going." And then he
Yeah.
said, "Oh, don't worry." He used to call me Sweetles. "Don't worry, Sweetles. I'm always going to be here." And he was
Yeah.
looking at me as he was saying that. And I said, "Where?" And then he said,
Ah,
"Right here." And he was pointing in front of me. And I said, "No, you're not. There's so many other things that you could be doing.
yeah.
Why would you be here?" You know, like,
I,
but yeah, yeah, I
yeah.
guess it brings comfort to people when they lose someone, to think that maybe that person is right there. But
Yeah. Sometimes
it's,
it's hard to believe because I mean, do you ever like think of telling him something and
oh, I
you
do
want to tell
sometimes.
him something and
Oh, and he's not there?
yeah,
Like call him or something like
it's
that? Oh,
hard.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there have been a
I,
couple of times like that. And yeah, there have been a
yeah.
couple of times. It hasn't happened too often, but what has happened was, if somebody's knocking at the door, because sometimes what he would do is he would leave his house keys quite often at home.
Yeah.
So when he would, and I would joke with him saying, "Am I the butler? Is that what you
Yeah.
really want me to be, as the butler, answering the door, letting you in?" And
Yeah.
but sometimes now when somebody knocks at the door, I think, "Oh," or when the phone rings, I think, "Oh, he's calling us from wherever he's traveled to."
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's for a second, and then
it's
you sort of, the
and then
disappointment sets
like,
in.
it does not even a second. It's like, oh, it could be, but then you have a sudden realization. Uh, Unfortunately, it's not. Like,
No.
I remember waking up from surgery, and being like, I want to see my mum, and then realizing she's not there. And
How was that for you?
that's hard, but like, it's hard to get your head around because all that you want to tell them, but then you realize, oh, it's it was the same as when I was diagnosed again with spinal. I wanted to tell my mum, and it's a sudden realization that, oh, actually, I can't tell them. Uh, it's people listening, like, it's hard to explain to people. You'll probably agree, like, although you think they're there for a minute, you know they're not.
Mm,
And that is really hard, especially if you like, you've got something really good to tell them or something bad to tell them. It's like, you just want them there for comfort rather
of
than you
course.
being there for yourself.
Yeah. Do you remember the last times that you had spent with your mom?
Uh, I was young. I can remember a few good times, and that's it.
Mm.
Because I was 9 years old, so I remember holidays and stuff, and like smells and stuff. But it's probably the same with you and Adam. You remember the good times and sometimes the bad, but then
Oh,
you'll have a
yeah.
giggle about it and be
Yep.
like, "Yeah, that was actually pretty fun." Like, you could think of when you were like absolutely soaked outside or something. And it might have been terrible then, but now it's what you remember.
I think something that's helped has been for the kids and I to, at least for me, I bring up his name as much as I can in
Yeah,
conversation. I think it's important even with other people, and I can tell they kind of get uncomfortable when I bring up his name, as the story that I remember.
yeah,
Oh, remember when Adam did da 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 da? And
yeah.
sometimes people, I can see it in their eyes. It's like,
It's
oh, she's
yeah.
going there,
It's still really close to us though. Like
Hmm.
that is our life, and I think people need to accept that. It's
Do
like,
you and your brother talk about your mom or your dad?
yeah, a few we do, but like not often. It's like, although they say, obviously, I lost my mum a long time ago compared to you, like 9, 10 years ago,
Hmm.
and the memory is true. The memory never does go. You'll always remember memories you had. For example, she's been out. I've had a stepmom for another
Hmm.
for more than half my life, more than my mother. But I still remember my mum. It's like the memories will never go.
No.
They'll always be there, as people say, and it's true. I do agree with it.
It's nice to have those memories, though. Thank God for those,
Yeah,
right?
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, for you, we've spoke about how you're a parent, but the kids as well. It's just so hard. Were they young?
Yeah. So when he was diagnosed, Sam was just starting high school. So he was just
Oh,
going into grade
yeah,
9. He would have been 13.
yeah.
Um, and Isabel was in her last year of high school, about to start her applications for university.
Oh,
So yeah, they were young.
yeah,
For me as a parent, I one way to help them through it was to get their schools on board, just to
yeah.
make sure that, because to be honest, I mean, as a parent, especially with kids at that stage, they're at school more than you're seeing them outside of school.
They
So,
are.
right?
You need to make sure they're getting the help and support that they need because
Yep.
I know it's hard. I spent 4, 5, 6 years of counselling uh, because of one thing, and they don't realize that this thing manifests into littler things
Hmm.
that can, in fact, become like life threatening or something mentally. Uh, as long as they have the support from the school, because you can't really protect them in school,
No,
which is awful.
no.
Uh,
You can reinforce to them how important it is
yeah,
that if they're having a moment, or if they're having a bad day or whatever, that there are people that they can go to and talk to. But I think it's more likely that you're going to get a guidance counselor or a homeroom teacher or what have
yeah,
you, the director of the school, if they know what's going on at home. If they
yeah,
see your kid by themselves or what have you, just to tap them on the shoulder. Hey, how you doing?
yeah,
Is everything okay? I'm here to talk, or what have you. I mean, it's really important. And I think, nowadays it's more likely that a school is going to be supportive than
yeah,
years and years ago. um but yeah, that was a big thing for me to know that the
yeah,
schools were in my little support network.
yeah. It's really important for support, and it's really helpful. My mum, when she was a teacher, she used to say, if someone's not smiling, give them one. So give them a smile.
Oh,
So just smile at them to make them feel like they're having a good day. Or
that's nice.
just, I always stick to that now as well because we don't know what's going on in other people's lives. Like we look at each other and we just, it's a normal person. And little do people know that I am classed as disabled. But you can't tell that at all. And we can't tell that you have in fact lost someone really close to you, and we're all a little raw, so just be nice to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, maybe the pandemic has, softened a lot of people to be more empathetic to others. I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm seeing as the pandemic is kind of starting to dwindle in many places. And, I can only say for Toronto, people are kind of going back to their usual, hey,
yeah,
I'm gonna do me. And it's like, okay, I think this might have been all for nothing, this whole year and a bit,
yeah.
but whatever, it's okay, but
You did
yeah,
kind,
and
yeah. You did kind of wish that it'd reset people's attitudes and take it back to like more respectful and be like more family orientated.
mm, at least for a period of time. Maybe I'm
Yeah,
the cynic. I don't know. It'll remain to be seen how
it
we're all
will.
going to be after this
It
is all
will.
done.
It will. So that for anybody with about with that chart, for anybody who needs support, I'll put some links in the description down below. I'm sure if you're listening from like Canada, America, from where Janet's from, I'm sure she'll send me some links and I'll put them in as well.
For sure.
Yeah. So uh, there's one thing which is not to do with bereavement, just total curiosity. Uh, what's the healthcare like in Canada, and is it expensive?
So we have a public system.
Yeah,
Uh, I would argue that we do have a two-tier system. You can get private healthcare if
a
you
bit like
choose.
over here. Yeah,
Yeah. So, they're private clinics. But for the most part, it's public.
yeah,
And we had fantastic care. I
yeah,
cannot complain one yip about our physicians. They were amazing. The
yeah,
one thing that I would say, even with that, was when Adam was diagnosed, the first thing we did was reach out to anybody we knew who was in healthcare, whether
yeah,
it was a neighbor, it didn't matter what you did in healthcare.
yeah,
Reach out to them, neighbors, friends of colleagues, didn't matter, to see if they knew an oncologist,
yeah,
and even more specifically, if they knew somebody who was a neuro-onc
yeah,
and a surgeon. So, and then we reached out to those people through Adam's GP to set up meetings in those 2 weeks, because it was 2 weeks until he was getting ready for his surgery.
yeah,
And we wanted to meet with whoever we could to align ourselves with people who we felt were going to be really good partners with us
yeah.
in this.
To gain like trust. Yeah,
Because even though we thought we had a good healthcare system, we didn't know what, just because when you're diagnosed in the hospital, you have this surgeon or um neurosurgeon who's
yeah.
telling you everything, and that generally might be the person who's going to be doing your surgery. That could be a good thing,
It
but
could.
it could end
Yeah.
up being not a good partnership. So
If you
we
get
wanted to
good
make sure.
vibes or not, that's the.
Yeah,
It's
and
all relies on communication, trust, and vibes.
yep,
I can
listening
tell you that. Yeah,
skills, all those sorts of things, right? So, and so we really did our homework, and
yeah,
at the end of the day, we met with a few different ones, and our surgeon was fantastic. The neuroonc and the radiologists were as well.
yeah,
We could have gone in another direction where it just wouldn't have been a good synergy, and
yeah,
I know of other people who've gone that route, and they didn't do any of the work to make sure that whoever they were going to be aligning themselves with was going to be the right person.
you do need trust.
Yep, big
That
time.
is true. Like I would not have signed the papers for surgery had I not trusted the neurosurgeon because you just wouldn't trust your life with it. And that's pretty much what it comes down to.
Yeah. And some people just, they wonder, what are you talking about? You're interviewing people, you're having meetings with doctors, because it's a public system. It's not what
Yeah,
people do. You meet with somebody when you're first going through something, and that's who you end up following on this path. And a lot of times you hear from people, I can't stand my doctor, or I can't stand this whatever.
yeah,
And I can only say that we had a really great experience from
yeah.
that perspective.
I've had a few dodgy doctors. You can put in a complaint or something. You'll get
Oh,
changed and find someone better, or
oh, wow.
someone that's better with you for communication with you. It's
Yep.
like
Yeah.
they'll always change something for you.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, with both of our care services are public. It's like uh, they're there to support the public, not work against the public.
Yeah, of course. But, I was in I remember like halfway through our whole experience, I decided that, oh, maybe I should try group therapy. Maybe that would be something
Yeah,
that I would really get into. It wasn't. But, I thought, I'm the kind of person I want to try and just see what
yeah.
sticks. Right.
I've tried like group stuff with it. Yeah, it's always worth a
Well,
go.
it is, right? And it depends who you have outside of that group who's supportive, right? I
Yeah,
mean, we were lucky. I felt like, we had a really great group of friends and family, and but it was just still worth trying. But I do remember being in that room, and of course all of the people who had GBM
yeah,
were, gravitating to one another
yeah,
and asking, who's your doctor, where are you going to, and then, when a couple of them had said, oh, I'm going to so and so and I'm really unhappy, they're a terrible listener, how can
yeah,
I get in to see somebody else? And you would
yeah,
hear this conversation playing out, and I just thought, oh, I'm so grateful that we have who we
yeah.
have. Um, yeah. So, but the healthcare system, I have to say, is it's pretty good. I mean,
Top
you can get some
notch. Yeah,
people who say it stinks,
and
but
yeah, that's the same over here as well. It's like it's not right because uh they're like the NHS is underfunded so and so, but they've done a good job for me. So I'm
that's,
happy.
I mean, you're not here to kind of campaign for, everybody who's going through it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I do my campaigning uh, to support other people, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not like I'm saying, "Oh, the NHS is rubbish," because it's a good invention, isn't it?
It is. Oh my gosh, it's fantastic when you don't need to worry and you compare to like in the States when
Yeah,
people,
paying so much money, I would.
yeah. And the
I
stress on top of the
yeah,
stress of having the disease, the stress of dealing with how you're going to fund your treatments.
exactly. It's like we have availability to clinical trials. Yes, not all of them, but we have what the public, what the we have more access to it than like people who are on the same wages as or something, because we live in we live in a different country to them.
Yeah. Oh, and we have, these privately funded
Yeah,
things that people can tap into if you don't have an extended healthcare program.
yeah,
I mean, it is pretty great. It is a stress. I remember once being in the pharmacy, we were waiting for our chemo drugs, and there was a couple that was in there. They were older. I don't know what sort of cancer they were dealing with,
yeah,
but English was not their first language, and they
yeah,
had to do the process of applying for extra
yeah.
funding. And I just thought, man, that's cannot be a great situation,
No,
to be going home and worried that you've got this thing, in you, and then you have to worry about filling out
yeah,
this application and worrying if it's going to be accepted. And
yeah,
man, it just there were so many conversations we had that we just said, there's so many reasons, despite whatever we're going through, that we have to thank our lucky stars.
yeah. I totally agree. I mean, I'm lucky I don't have to pay for prescriptions or anything because it's on our health service because I'm a cancer patient. It's like, imagine living in America and you're looking at because I was on some growth hormone, you're looking at 500 to £1,000 a go.
Yeah.
And that would last, what,
Yeah.
6 to 12 days. And I took it for about 6 years. So,
That's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, I think, in an ideal world, it would be great if, no one had to worry about financing anything if they were going through
Yeah.
whatever, I mean, anyway, I'm sure there have been papers written on it.
There probably are. Papers
You don't
written
need
on
my 2
everything.
cents.
Right. So we're going to bring up the mood a bit now.
Oh.
Tell us about your podcast.
So the podcast name is Resilient People. It started as a blog back in 2018 when I had been sitting in waiting rooms for far too long, watching people, which is one of my favorite things to do, no matter what's going on. I
People
love
watching is the best.
Forget about looking and
It's not
scrolling at your phone.
stalking. It's not stalking. It's
No.
people watching it. It's completely
I have
different.
no interest in stalking anybody.
Exactly.
I just want to watch you in your element.
It's not like you're gonna follow them or anything.
No.
Yeah.
So I would just look around, and you think, boy, everybody's here for the same gig, right?
Yeah.
We've all got cancer. Some breast, some brain, some in other spots, and I would just look around and you just think,
yeah,
wow, we're lucky that we've got who we've got around us with the family and friends and our physicians. But how are people, I would think to myself, how do people, regular people, I'm not talking about celebrities and people who have a certain amount of power, how do they get through stuff?
Yeah.
Things that are happening to them. And cancer was not going to be the thing that I was only going to be talking about. But, I did know of a couple of people who'd gone through big life changes and challenges. And so I started by publishing a couple of their stories. And then from there, a couple more people had written me or friends had said, oh, this is a cool idea. I know somebody who I heard speak somewhere. You should find them. And then it became this whole thing of resilience. Before, resilience was a word that we heard all the time, especially through the pandemic, because I'm not going to pretend that I invented the word resilience, but when I was thinking of what am I going to call this, resilient did pop up. And I remember mentioning it to Adam. He could not wrap his head around what I was doing. He just thought, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to spend your extra time doing this? And I said, I think it's inspiring. I think it's inspiring. And I think it's slightly cathartic, going through something and feeling like, hey, you're not alone. No matter what you're kind of going through. And so it kind of grew and grew. And there have been stories about all kinds of things, from, cancer, of course, but then, we've had Holocaust stories. I've had a woman who lost her husband to AIDS. A comedian came on to talk to me about what it's like to go up on stage and be heckled. And, it's all kinds of different
interesting
ways. Yeah. That people are just managing to deal with adversity, but still the twist for me though is not just, oh, you're so resilient. It's what are you doing to inspire others to be resilient with your experience?
I mean, I really found that when I was on it, you were like, what are you doing? Not what are other people doing. It's like, how can you're living with it? So tell me how you're living with it, and hopefully we can help other people. Like, I run my blog and podcast things similar to yours, like doing it for the same reason pretty much. But it's very rewarding doing a podcast, I'd say. You get to tell people your story, but it's more about sharing other people's stories that I find, which is the best. So this series out now, I'm really happy to be talking to people. because
Well, it's so easy talking with you too, right? So
yeah,
I mean, that's the other thing. I mean,
and
I've
it's not like I've just pulled some random people in off the street. It's like, what,
not yet.
me and
Wait
you
till
don't
things
just
slow
talk.
down.
Yeah, me and you don't just talk about these horrible topics.
No,
We have a
no.
life outside of this.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, and I've been contacted by many people
Yeah,
who are going through brain cancer, who have gone through brain cancer, and
yeah,
as much as I appreciate their, where they are in life and
yeah,
all that, and they want to share their story, the stories that I want to tell aren't just about brain cancer, because there are so
yeah,
many different things out there that people are living with and gone through that. Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, you just kind of think, boy, here are like people that are just have really no resources.
yeah,
And they still manage to create something that's helping a lot of people based
yeah.
on their experience. I just think that's very compelling.
I totally agree. And there's
And they're not
like,
stuck. They're not just
yeah,
being stuck in whatever's happened to them. I really feel like in myself, in my soul, I refuse to be defined
yeah,
by this what's happened to me and my kids and his family. I feel like we owe it to him, to move on and show that, like,
yeah.
hey, you know what, we had a good go when you were here, but
And we'll
let's
always
move
be
on.
thinking
And
of you. And,
yeah, we love you, and like just keep, you know moving forward, and
yeah,
yeah, learning from what's happened to you. For sure, I've learned what's important. And I think, with resilient people as well, with the podcast, I'm constantly being reminded by the people I talk with that, hey, like, we're not forgetting like what we've been through. We're just
yeah.
saying it happened, you know it was bad or whatever, and here we're moving on, and this is how we're doing it.
I think that's a good way to wrap up the podcast. Uh, thank you for coming on. Uh, for everybody listening, you can find all of Janet's stuff in the link in the description and the support that we mentioned earlier. And life's terminal, so you need to live it.